All right, everybody. Welcome to episode number 4 of the Waste Warriors podcast. I am your host, Lee Godbold. We've got producer Joe in the background that is running the show for us, and I'm very excited about today's episode. I think if you're an entrepreneur, a business owner in the waste industry, you're somebody that's aspirational, you've got goals and things that you want to accomplish, today's going to be an episode you're going to listen all the way through. And the reason for it is we've got some really big heavy hitters in here. I want to set the stage a little bit. We've got somebody or a company. We've got a company here they've published that they have over 400 locations. The published revenue figure is over 600 million plus in annual system sales. And over the past handful of years, they've got what appears to be 60 plus junk removal locations. So they've been able to expand from doing extremely well in one industry to now going into a new industry, and they're off to a really big start. So who are we talking about? We're talking about 2 Men in a Truck, and the guys that we have on here, big heavy hitters. We've got the CEO, Randy Shacka, is the president of 2 Men in a Truck and the CEO. And then we've got Jason Galey, who's the senior brand director for 2 Men and a Junk Truck. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us on, Lee.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Lee.
So, Randy, you and I've had the pleasure of being around you a few times and us joining some calls over the last few years as you guys were getting this junk removal division started up. And one of the things that I've really observed about you, I think you're a tremendous leader. Obviously, you've got hundreds of franchise partners, I think. You've got a big corporate team. You hear a lot of suggestions and ideas, and I'm sure there's a lot of problems that come your way. You seem to handle it with style and do an excellent job. And in speaking with some of your franchise partners, all of them say they just love the fact that right from the top, it seems like you guys are listening, may not necessarily do everything that they want, but at least you're open to it and you manage that very, very well. So it's obvious that you're a kind of a tremendous leader. The other thing that really kind of sticks out, because you never see it anymore, it's the fact that 2 Men in a Truck has been your only job since college, because you started as like an intern, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about those early days. I know you're an engineer. Just kind of tell me a little bit about those early days, how you wound up at 2 Men in a Truck. I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah. First, appreciate the time to be on with you. We respected everything you've built as well. And so, yeah, I got my start 24 years ago while at Michigan State pursuing engineering. And as a junior at Michigan State, and frankly, my dad was asking, "Hey, what's going on this summer for work and employment? How are you going to pay the bills?" And I had done internships the last previous 2 years, but there's no energy, no passion behind it, right? And I came across this opportunity for a marketing intern at 2 Men in a Truck, and had no business applying for it. No background in franchising. Didn't really know the name 2 Men in a Truck, even though it was in Lansing, Michigan, here where we started. But I needed a job, man, and so I applied for it. And just walked in the door and fell in love with it, right? And just the values and just the family feel. I think back then I was the 27th person working in the building. Today we're over 200 plus, right? And so, came in as an intern, just learned just what franchising was. More importantly, how to work with people. And that's ultimately what we do each and every day. We're in moving and junk removal, but it's a people business, right? And so, the family at the time taught me all about that, right? And relationships, how important they are, partnerships, seek and understand before you understood. And so, yeah, I got my start. I had the opportunity to work 2 years at a franchise startup for 2 Men in a Truck in Florida, Orlando. Moved down, slept on a couch for free with a husband and wife that just opened 2 Men. So really got into the operations really quickly on the trucks. Out grassroots marketing, doing all the heavy lifting that needed to get a business off the ground in a market that nobody knew 2 Men in a Truck really, right? And so 2 years later, I got homesick, moved back to Michigan, and you fast forward 20 years later, I took over as brand president in 2012, and today I sit on the leadership team with ServiceMaster brands as well. We were acquired back in 2021, and so it's been a great run, great ride. You mentioned the ability to stay with the brand. It just hasn't felt like it's been that long, but we're always changing and ebbing and growing. So I think that's part of the draw too, right? So it's been a good run for sure.
Seek to understand before being understood. I think that is an excellent saying that I just kind of want to highlight there. I think you pick up these little nuggets every once in a while, and that's an awesome saying right there. I am curious. So you said kind of immediately you were engineer, you're Spartan, Michigan State, and you joined Two Men in a Truck. What year was this?
Gosh, 2001. So yeah, 24 years this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, be coming up on 25 here soon, man. That's a huge accomplishment. So the first thing you said is it just felt like a family and you felt like you belonged. What were some things that they did that gave you that feeling that I'm sure led you to being there, 24, almost 25 years now?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And, the crazy thing it still sticks out to my mind was walking in, interviewing for an internship at this company, right? And my name was on the welcome board. Like I just felt it gets stuck in me, like that little attention to detail, like who am I, right? And I'm interviewing for this opportunity. I need this job, but that's how much they thought of, I guess, my time and my presence being there. And then secondly, just the opportunity where, as part of my orientation as an intern, like I sat down with our founder, Mary Ellen Sheets. I sat down with her daughter, Melanie, who's president at the time. The original Two Men, Brig and John, they all spent time with me as an intern, learning about me, right? Kind of that seek to understand, right? And so that was instilled right away. It's like, man, how much care, compassion, and of their personal time they gave to me starting out. I just fell in love right at the gate, man. They bought, just showed me all about TMT. They shared the values, the history, but it was just the behaviors of welcoming somebody into a new environment for a college kid that really stuck with me. It still sticks with me to this day.
Wow, that's very, very powerful stuff. The other thing that I'm curious about is I didn't realize the franchise that you interned with, was it for 2 years?
Yeah, down in Orlando, yeah.
I didn't realize it was brand new when you went down there. So you were there from the very start of a franchise, and then over that 2-year time frame, you grew it. So when you first got started, I mean, how many trucks are you talking? How many people? Are you on the moving truck? Are you doing the marketing? What's it like getting a brand new franchise location like that started?
Yeah, in one that I didn't share, I was a junior going into my senior year when Brad, who's the franchise owner down there, came to me and said, "Hey, Angie, my wife and I are looking to open up a Two Men in Florida. Do you want to go with?" And Lee, I was 2 classes shy of graduating with an engineering degree at Michigan State.
Yep.
It's something about that question just like bothering me, like, man, this opportunity, I've been searching for something like this, like to go build something different, and no knock on engineering. It's a great program. There's things there, but when he asked me that question, I was like, man, yes, I do want to go, but secondly, I don't know how I'm going to ask my dad to let me go, because he was a commercial lender for 30 plus years, very conservative, and but going to him and saying, hey, like, I have this opportunity, promise you I'm going to fulfill my degree, but I want to go after this. And as a great dad, he said, hey, just promise me you'll get your degree. I'll support you 100%. But going down there, just that opportunity to do whatever it took out of the gate, right? Whether that's like, hey, I'm on the trucks 6 days a week, 7 days a week, working these long hours, to getting the grassroots materials out there, to handling a potential damage if it took place, like doing whatever it took to help go from 2 trucks. I think when I left, there were up to 6 trucks in that 2-year period, which is, relatively speaking back then with an unknown brand in a new market, I was pretty good. Right. And so being part of that journey, being part of the experience from the ground up, I think has helped me in my role today, obviously from working with owners that are doing that each and every day. Right. And so having the compassion, the empathy, the understanding of what's going on is something that I truly want to make sure I abide by each and every day.
Love it. Would you say you've done just about every job within the Two Men in a Truck system, or at least most of them?
I think I've had 15 titles over my time, and it's not like they're important to me or anything, but it's just, I'm a reflection of so many others in this brand that came here looking for a job and have turned into something much bigger, right? Whether that's franchise ownership or somebody that came here even for a few months and then left to pursue a profession. But yeah, I feel like for the most part, I've been part of a lot of different roles and have enjoyed every minute of it.
Very, very cool. So, Jason, I know you haven't been with Two Men in a Truck quite as long, I don't think. What was your path to Two Men in a Truck, and what really made you feel like this brand was the right fit for you?
Yeah, so I joined, well, thanks for having us on too again, Lee. So I joined in, it was this early September. The brand launched in August of 23. Much like Randy, I'm an engineer. I'm an engineer by trade. I was in the manufacturing field for most all of my career since I was probably 16 years old. I was from a high school co-op to an intern, and I was in commercial steering and suspension business, and worked my way into Class A's and emergency response vehicles, and supported that on many fronts: engineering, commercial sales side of it, business development, service, operations. So I held a lot of roles, and the opportunity for joining two men came in front of me, and all the way to the even the initial email to have the conversation. I remember Sarah Bennett reaching out and just kind of inquiring about the opportunity to have the conversation, and even the process to be able to join, where I was exposed to a ton of great leadership throughout the entire 2 Men in a Truck team. Thoughtfulness, cooperative, collaborative, very welcoming. It's kind of funny. Randy was talking about having his name on the monitor, on out front when he came in. Similar experience. I've actually tried to share that too when I see others in the lobby that are coming in and for interviews, and encouraging them to ask questions. And it's been a great fit for me. I think one of my biggest, and I've talked about it often, I'll continue to do it, but I think coming from the manufacturing business for almost 20 years, and then walking into franchising, the culture that Randy and the team have then built here over the years is bar none the best. It's one that speaks volumes to the history of the family and what they've built. Trying to make sure we embody that here at 2 Men in a Junk Truck as well as the best that we can. So I think it's just been able to kind of step in, hit the ground running. And I'm gonna steal it from Randy's, so much so that I wrote it on my whiteboard in my office. It's the progress over perfection. And Randy's been good about reminding me of that, hey, this is a whole new brand. This is a new venture. This is something that we have demand for, that there's been asked for. So, we got to put one foot in front of the other, and we're going to go figure it out together. And which is probably one of our strengths, that we've been able to early onset partner with a lot of really good franchisees that have made that leap of faith with us and said, hey, let's go build this together. And being able to have that open dialogue, collaboration, and try and figure out what right looks like. So I think that for me has probably been the biggest opportunity when joining 2 Men, is leveraging 40 years of culture that they've built here around, and trying to make sure that we embody that here at 2 Men in a Junk Truck as well.
That's excellent. That's great to hear. And we're going to roll into the 2 Men in a Junk Truck topic in just a moment. And I'm excited to talk about that, because it's really cool that you guys went from building something so big on the moving side to going into something where you had absolutely no real experience in, and taking it from kind of the ground floor to you guys have got a pretty sizable operation now. I do have one final question when we're kind of talking about your backgrounds and everything. Randy, we can start with you, and Jason, I'm going to ask you the same question. Was there a specific moment early on when you realized, like, hey, this isn't just a job, this is going to be something that we're really going to turn into a career?
Yeah, I think when I left to go help the franchise get going in Orlando, and then, spent the 2 years there and moved back to Michigan with a lot of experience, right? And I came very confident with that, right? And so when I came back to interview, they were just looking for someone here to help startup franchises get off the ground faster, right? And it's like, I don't know, you name it, like divine intervention, whatever it may be, like the timing of that, saying, I just did that for 2 years. I'm confident, I'm ready. I love this brand. I just, I blood, sweat, and tears with this company on the trucks at times. Like, this isn't what I thought I'd be end up, going after, but it is something I want to go pursue. And I came back, Lee, and I had an opportunity, which sounds kind of weird right now, but we were growing so fast, and the family came and said, hey, we need to do a better job of documenting what we do here, because we're growing so fast, and it's in everyone's head. We have to get it from head to paper. And so we went after, if you're familiar with the ISO certifications of, the automobile manufacturing industry, which is kind of unheard of in franchising, but
yeah, it's weird.
They're like, that's like what we need. Does anyone want to go lead that project? And like, nobody rose their hands, right? But I did. It's like, I'd love to, because hey, like it's boring, but it's important, and it's learning, right? And so I knew, like, to be able to go take that project and step up and lean. I learned so much, but I had, coming back, so much energy, confidence, and just experience of doing that. I knew, like, this is what I want to go do, because I could see so many people coming to this brand looking for opportunities. Like, man, if I can help these owners get going quickly, get out of the gate and grow, like that just helps them go, fulfill their goals, hopes, and dreams. And so it was that moment, probably early 2000s, when I came back, and that was part of the opportunity. But taking on a project that was kind of monotonous and being that energetic about it, I think kind of shows the passion behind the 2 Men on a Truck brand.
How big of a deal do you think it is that you were willing to take on that job, do something that nobody else was willing to do? Obviously, you've been at the bottom, you've gone to the top. Do you think that played a major role? I'm curious in it because we have a lot of younger people that watch this, and as a business owner, you have to tackle everything. And then on the other side of things, we've got guys that watch this that are also just kind of moving up the ranks. They might be within the waste industry, potentially in the moving industry. They want to get ahead, and they want to do something kind of like you did. How did that willingness to do the stuff that's not necessarily fun but important, how has that impacted your career?
Yeah, you know what? Like one of the original 2 men is Briggs Sorber, who was CEO here for many years. And one of the things he said when he promoted me to president, I was the first non-family member to take that role. Was like he was the one, Randy was the one that would step up and do things that nobody else wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And to the point where Briggs, we even crafted a hallway here at our corporate office called the Heavy Lifters Way. Right? It's like those willing to do the heavy lifting for projects or areas that nobody else wants to do, knowing it's going to help progress the company forward. And so it's not just like words, it's something we believe in. And it's something I think that no matter where you are in your career, like if you're just getting going, like doing the things that no one else wants to do, A, is hopefully solving a problem. B, is showing the energy you have to go after doing something like that for the betterment of the company first. And then third is just, you're challenging yourself to take on something that's difficult, right? And so you grow through that personally as well. So all those things kind of help shape me, I think, to where I am today. But it's something that not many people are proud of being ISO certified. We were way back when as a franchise company because it wasn't the norm, right? But we had the documentation.
Well, uniformity amongst franchises is obviously huge. So if you go to a fast food restaurant, you go to any Chick-fil-A in the country, it's generally going to be the exact same no matter where you are. And it's very disappointing if you go someplace and you expect one thing and you get something different. So I would imagine that ISO certification has probably served you guys well over the years as you've expanded 2 Men in a Truck and now into 2 Men in a Junk Truck.
Right on. Especially our internal processes here that we do at the corporate, the franchisor side, right? And making sure that stays just as we expect at the field level, those standards. You make or break your brand by diminishing those standards, right? And so it's something that really set foundationally for the next probably 20 years of let's go build upon these standards we built, align with our values, building a compelling why behind what we do. It's kind of the recipe for what's gotten us here, along with finding the great people that live those values each and every day.
So I'm curious because it's such a huge system, and one of the things you mentioned is making sure that the brand standards are maintained all the way throughout the organization. How do you do that when you have, I don't know how many different owners you have? What is it, 100? You probably have 100 different owners, maybe?
Yeah, it's over 200 plus, yeah.
Over 200. So over 200 plus owners and personalities and locations. What are the best practices that you do to really make sure everybody operates using the same system, the same standards? So if a customer's moving in North Carolina, they get the same experience as if they're moving in Michigan. How do you do that?
Yeah, we kind of laugh a little bit about that. I think the varying opinions is what makes franchising great, right? Is the ability to have people from different walks of life, experiences, nationalities, education come together with a common goal, shared values, and work together to build a brand, right? And so there's a lot of trust in that. Somebody's working within 2 Men in a Truck, 1,000 miles away. And I think it starts for us when we first meet an individual or a prospect that's looking at our brand, is being very clear with who we are, why we do what we do. And to some extent, if this person joins us or doesn't join us, the brand's going to continue to grow, right? Like we're going to continue, like, so you don't say that, but at the same time, it's because of the culture and the standards you've built is, do you want to be part of what we have here? And like, we're not going to be all different things to all different people, but this is who we are. If it's something that interests you, we're going to know that right during the discovery process and be upfront and honest and open about the good, the bad, the ugly of franchising, the good, the bad, the ugly of TMT, but then also hand that person every one of our franchise owners' phone numbers to go call and say, that'll give you the true sense of who we are. That'll give you the wins, the challenges, perspectives of us here at the corporate office. So it starts during that process. And then like secondly is just clear communication and relationship building, right? If we're continually communicating, what the standard is. We reinforce it through our behaviors, and we're building relationships along the way. Like, we kind of work to the culture to solve problems, right? We're not focusing so much on a policy or a standard. It's like, it's reinforcing why the standard exists, because more than likely somebody that's been here 20 years has benefited from having those standards, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just had a conversation with the owner the other day about that same thing, right? Questioning the policy. It's like, hey, it's been there for 20 years. Not saying it's not going to change, but you've benefited from this because we've held firm on this when somebody else has not abided by it, and it's made our brand stronger. And so kind of all over the board there, but it starts with, the process of discovery day. It's clearly communicating and reinforcing our why when a decision comes out, and then continually working on that partnership or relationship where we pick up the phone if there's an issue, or more importantly, if someone isn't abiding by a standard, we're pretty consistent from our process here of letting people know that.
So I'm curious about that. And Jason, I have not forgotten about you. We're going to get to you in just a moment. I'm really curious about the process on how you identify when somebody isn't following a standard. If you can give me a couple examples of those, and from a management standpoint, because we've got people that are very interested in potentially starting a franchise system at some point. How do you recognize that stuff? How do you deal with it? And what are some of the ramifications you guys have experienced in the past when you're trying to kind of enforce those brand standards?
Yeah, and that term standard, it's pretty broad, right? There's policies, there's our franchise agreement, there's a lot of things clearly written when we join into an agreement with somebody in a partnership. A prime example is our trucks, right? We're managing people in trucks every day, whether it's junk or moving, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our signage on our trucks is important. Like,
Mm-hmm.
just like UPI, like all these other brands out there that people, almost 40% of our customers see our trucks. That's how they learn about us, right? And so having signage that's off on one truck, you could just say, oh, that's one of 4,000 trucks. We don't need to worry about it.
Right.
But instead we say, hey, like, this is our layout. This is how it's supposed to be done. Yours isn't done that way. Let's work out a timeline to get it fixed. Right. And so that's the choices you make each and every day to say either you hold firm on what's important, and especially as it relates back to the brand and to your earlier point, Lee, like you mentioned, the consumer expectations. They see different looking trucks rolling around different cities. It's not going to help the brand grow. And so you kind of go back to that for the franchisee. You give them time, you work with them on a plan to get it fixed. But those are choices you make each and every day, right? That say, hey, we could let it go, or do we hold firm? And typically we hold firm because we know if we had 2,000 of our 4,000 trucks looking different, it's not a fleet, it's not a system, it's not a standard, right? And so that's one example. I think there's quite a few others that we have to go by, but I think a lot of the issues can be dealt with up front. When you bring somebody into your brand, you bring somebody in, it's just explaining the pros and cons of franchising, explaining here's our standards, explaining here's what's expected, and then at the end of the day, do you still want to be part of it?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going to solve a lot of it, but you get that out of the way, because then you can go back to, if it's 2 years later, hey, remember that conversation at Discovery Day we talked about this? That's why, right? And so it's important from us, especially around the brand. And if you're building a brand, if you're looking to franchise or replicate success, that's ultimately what franchising is. Holding firm on standards is a big foundational thing you're going to have to do.
Yeah, there's a couple of takeaways there. Is number one, when you guys are looking to sell franchises, you're definitely not desperate. If anything, you're more or less kind of like take it or leave it. Not quite, quite that rough, but that's what more or less it is. And what I found is if you have that, you tend to sell a lot more, and you get the right people and you get rid of the wrong people. So I think that's a great way of approaching it. And the thing that I look at in terms of policies, brand standards, whatever we want to call them here, if you let one thing kind of pass or slide by, it's like a chink in the armor. And one little chink in the armor, one little scratch isn't going to hurt it. But if it keeps happening over and over and over, eventually that piece of armor is going to fail. And it's the same type of stuff when you're trying to run a well-run franchise system. So, and I can only imagine some of the stuff you guys go through when you're trying to do that, because you got so many people and opinions and investments people have made and all that kind of stuff. So it's very cool to watch you guys work and see what you do. So Jason, moving back over to you, I do want to get back to the original question that led to all this with Randy, but I want to wait 1 second on that. Tell me about on the junk side of things. What are some of the, if you want to call them complaints or concerns or ideas or brand standards, whatever, what are some of the stuff that pops up on your side where you have to be like, no, like this is the way we need to do stuff, and this is kind of how we need to do it? What are some stuff that you kind of hear from time to time, Jason?
I think probably initially out of the gate, because we have such a huge presence, and what we're trying to do is build our brand awareness just based on the youth of the brand. So we're really trying to make sure, to Randy's point, maintain those brand standards and what we have out in the industry and how we're managing those. I think we're kind of running in, there's been a few opportunities that have come through that have had different ideas on how they want to launch some of the marketing tactics that they have. And I lean back on Randy's comment, we also have an obligation to the rest of the franchisees to maintain those standards, right? And but I do want to say that we do have flexibility in, working with them to say, hey, let's do some testing, let's figure out what the impact could be. You know, we got to have growth, we got to have open ideas, and how do we push the envelope? But so just kind of working with them, setting timeframes around them, and trying to say, hey, this is a good idea, but maybe right now isn't the right time for this, And I think just based on the youth of our brand, that we're a little bit more sensitive to that right now, as we're still trying to build out the, the hedgehog concept, and trying to make sure we got the core values and the core services identified. So I think from that standpoint, it's been a little bit, just had a few ideas that have come in and how we can kind of push that out. Some of the leads, where we can generate the leads and how we get the leads, those have been kind of coming in as far as different ideas on them. So I'd say those have probably been some of the few different ideas that have come in that we've had to face.
What's one idea that you could talk about that it maybe came up and somebody was really kind of passionate about, and you guys ultimately decided not to move forward with it? How did you let that individual know? Kind of how was it received?
Well, it was probably one of the more recent ones that we kind of walked through, is the idea to be able to potentially even brand a box truck for junk removal purposes and stuff. So franchising is making sure you get the same experience at all locations, and we're kind of working through making sure that customer experience has been the same service, same trust, and every person that walks in that door. And what's even the vehicle that kind of pulls up, what is that experience? Come up, we have different versions of trucks, as but ultimately making sure the branding is consistent throughout the entire truck, the whole experience, kind of end to end on that. So I think that's probably been one of the more recent ones. But we're working with a few ideas on that. Just kind of recently have just said, hey, now's not like the time for us. We're really just trying to stay propped up on our core and what we know, and we'll put that on the docket and the parking lot items to be able to revisit.
I can't remember the exact saying, but I think it was Steve Jobs had a saying about how successful you are is not determined by what you say yes to, but what you say no to. And as you become more successful and you have more resources, then all of a sudden you have all these ideas and you have the ability to actually do it, but we're limited by time and attention. And saying no is often the best bet in terms of just kind of seeing the course through. And it's very tempting to chase those shiny objects and do those good ideas. So I imagine you guys are saying no quite often.
Yeah, we've got a lot of creative thinkers in the system, which I really appreciate. And I love the dialogue. I love having those collaboration and types of discussions around, not only where we're at, but where we can take this.
Excellent. So I want to transition now into launching the 2 Men in a Junk Truck brand and just kind of go into what was involved in it. Before we roll into that, one of our show sponsors is Specialty Truck Bodies. So we're just talking about trucks. If you guys are looking for junk removal trucks, go to junkremovaltrucksforsale.com. We've built and shipped, or STB's built and shipped, which I am the owner of STB, but has built and shipped over 200 junk removal trucks over the last handful of years. And we build them right here in North Carolina. We'd love to get you a truck if you guys are in the junk business and want to add to your fleet. Okay, so circling back or coming into launching 2 Men in a Junk Truck brand. Randy, when did you guys first discuss adding junk removal to moving? Like, what's the time frame like here?
Late 2019, I think we always go through a periodic just a visioning process, right, for the brands. And part of what we do is seek feedback from our past customers, right? It was just good, bad, the ugly of us, right? And one of the things we asked was just, hey, what other services would you trust 2 Men in a truck for? And just sent it out, right? And we got an overwhelming response. And it was all things like from yard cleanups to hanging TVs, like all different things. And the number one thing that came back was hauling away unwanted items, right? Or junk removal. At the same time, we had franchisees starting to get calls in the community just for junk removal only, not removing items from a move, right? Which we would do, consistently as part of our moving process. And so it's like kind of put, two and two together there. It's like, man, customers are asking for it and trust us for it. We got, the public and our local communities asking for it. Franchisees are excited for it. We really went to work to like, let's go figure this thing out, right? Let's put a plan together, put a team together. And that was the end of 2019. And everyone knows kind of what happened in 2020 in April. And so, but that was a good period for us because we, had a chance to take what we had learned to that point. Everything with supply chains was in flux. Everything was chaotic during that next, 12 to 18 months. So it gave us a chance to really look at, what do we want? Who do we want to be? Should it be part of Two Men on a Truck? Should it be a separate brand? But ultimately it came from feedback from customers. And, for us, one of the big lessons we learned too was like junk removal can't be a byproduct of moving. It just can't, right? And you've told us that working through you, with your guys' support of just, we have to separate them out. And so that really pushed us in 2023 to look at saying, hey, like, let's create its own offering, its own identity. We've got the equity of the Two Men name through franchising and the 40 years of the brand being in existence. It's missing the junk component. So let's be, I'm not a creative guy, we're both engineers, but looking at Two Men in a Junk Truck made sense. And so that was kind of the starting point. That's kind of when, Jason entered the picture as well of just saying, hey man, like we've taken this idea, we've got the carve out, we're working on the operating system, working on the branding, the trade, everything else is in motion, but we need leadership to go help take this forward. So that's been the fun part to watch. It's kind of go through that storming, norming, performing phases. And I think we're normalizing some of the things we just talked about on the standards and what we do as best practice. But now it's like taking that and really watching it launch and grow in the next several years ahead.
I love that. And obviously, when you're starting a new business and you're already in and very successful or in a large business that you guys have been doing for a long time, that transition can be kind of difficult because you have to pay a lot of close attention to the new business without the business that really is kind of paying the bills and doing the best, falling by the wayside. And I know a lot of planning goes into this. You have a lot of different people involved. What were some of the steps you took to kind of validate that junk removal is the way you want to go? I know you surveyed people and you talked to them, but internally, I mean, how did you guys figure out what's kind of the feasibility of this? What's the potential revenue that each location could have? I'm just curious what went into that process. If you can kind of lay out some specific steps you took.
Yeah.
You are an engineer, so I'm sure you've got those.
Well, one of the first things I did was Google junk removal videos on YouTube, and you popped up. So that was step one. Now,
that was first.
But really, like, I mean, you've been a tremendous just partner and just a resource for us and a good friend along the way here too. Just understanding, it's not just managing people in trucks exactly the same on the moving side. It's much different on the junk removal side, much different. And us getting that out of our minds, like, yeah, we can't puff our chests and say we've done this for 30 some years of moving, like junk's going to be easy, right? It's not, it's going to be hard just like any other business. And so I think, tapping into you as a resource of kind of learning just what those nuances could be. And then we also had a passionate group of like a pilot group of franchisees out of the gate too, 5 markets that were running it hard and running it strong. And it's like, man, the more they got into it, the more they shared feedback, the more excitement they had around it. It just validated like consumer need on junk is different, but there's still the philosophy of service, the philosophy of speed, the philosophy of showing up when we say we're going to be there with a smile in uniform, the professional aspect of it. There's some similarities there. I think we can make this work. And then, you compound that over a year of growth, and then you get others interested, and we're learning, we're building the process, we're trying new things, we're investing in new marketing tactics. Like it just kind of grew from there. So it feels like each month it gets more, there's more, I don't know, let's say trust, confidence, but more so validating what our thesis was at the beginning, which was we feel like we can find and keep more customers through our systems, our branding, and our great franchise partners to go scale this.
Yeah, more touch points.
Absolutely.
So you had a pilot group of about 5 franchise or 5 that did well, or what was your initial pilot group size?
Yeah, the initial was just 5 to start, right? And they're in some bigger markets throughout the U.S. and some smaller markets, but they were really, and you learn this in franchising too. There, there's some influential owners from a voice perspective, right? Like I can say things as long as I want, but somebody else says it within the network, it probably has a little more validity to it, right? Or more weight. I'm been here long enough to know that, right? And so you lean on your influencers, you lean on those that we'll give you straight candid feedback too about the business and the wins and losses. But yeah, that 5, but then, getting through COVID with that group and getting into 22, that group, quickly grew to, 15, 20 of others that kind of waited to see just a little bit to see how that first group did. And then, they made that first investment in a junk truck and we're running it while we're trying to carve this out into a separate brand. So you had a lot of super users out there running this without much structure or system behind it yet. And they were doing well with it. So it further validated, hey man, if we can put a system behind it, the branding, the structure, the support, it's going to be fun to see what opportunities it creates for people. Because at the end of the day, that's what's made two Men on a Truck great, is opportunity. People come here and they find more responsibility, a new opportunity. Junk was just a new path for us to say, man, how many other people are going to benefit from this internally that can step up and take on more responsibilities through this new brand.
Love it, man. Great stuff. So Jason, on your side, I know for being the brand director, I think you're probably a bit more involved on the 2 Men on a Junk Truck franchisees and on the owner side, and then obviously the junk side. One of the largest challenges I think you guys must have had is you've got some guys that have been running the moving side for a long period of time, and they've done very well. They've made great money. Probably a lot of them probably aren't working full time anymore. They've got people kind of handling stuff. And over, 10, 15, 20 years, it gets to be pretty easy to forget about the struggle of starting a new business, which is basically what this is. It's starting a new business. So when some of these first guys came in, you had at one point, maybe if you start with 5 and you got to about 15, I'm sure that you saw there were a few that did a lot better than the others. What kind of traits and what things were the ones doing better than the others doing compared to the ones that maybe kind of lagged behind?
Yeah, that's a great question, Lee. That was part of my learning process here as well, as far as, what's that success look like from an ownership standpoint? Some that were coming in, and as Randy mentioned, it took the dedication to separate the brands. And I think that was a huge move for us, but there were some owners that struggled with separating the brand, giving it that dedicated resources and leadership that it needs every single day. I think some maybe thought that, if we opened it, that the leads just start to flow in because we had the 2 Men equity within our name. But it wasn't that, it really had to take that grit to be able to build that brand awareness. Yes, you've been doing moving for so long, but there's more often than not that we've had to say junk removal is not moving. It is an entirely different entity. We don't do business, over the phone. We do business in the driveway. Right. So you have to have the right people that are walking into that driveway and talking to those customers. So it's kind of a change in mindset as to what the sense of urgency there is around junk removal, having the sales take place actually in the driveway, and understanding that it is a true separation that requires its own set of org structure, right? You have to have it. There are some shared resources that do make sense, whether it be on their HR side, risk and stuff, but organizationally, there has to be somebody, much like, 2 Men decided here. We wake up every single day thinking, how do we, further the junk removal side of our business and make sure that each location is successful. So some took, we even had some that thought maybe they knew how to do junk removal better than we did. So we had some learning curves there, and they had some opportunity to be able to say, okay, well, now we know what we didn't work. And I've had a few of those moments here too, right? There's been a few things that we've tried that hasn't worked, but that term fail fast, that is something that you need to do in a new brand, because walking through this and building it brand new over this last couple of years is definitely had some struggles with it. And I think just kind of identifying them and pivot fast has been huge for us. But overall, I think just kind of understanding that it is not moving, because we put the sign out front doesn't mean leads will flow in there. So we got to have that new business mentality in that grit and go out there and make that happen. I think that's probably been some of our biggest challenges.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I mean, one of the things when you have an amazing brand is people get so used to you doing one thing. They're movers. They're not junk haulers.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's probably a huge thing that you had to overcome, is educate that consumer on 2 Men on a Junk Truck, and that 2 Men on a Truck now offers moving. What are some of the steps that you took to kind of just kind of pound that into people's heads where they can start associating 2 Men in a Truck with junk removal?
Yeah, so I'd say it's even in the marketing push that we've had, and I know there's been a number of people who will I know on some of our calls, if somebody calls in for 2 Men in a Truck, that we'll even offer is like, hey, you now are able to get a free estimate for a junk removal at your location, either where you're at or where you're going kind of thing, and kind of weaving in some of that message to that standpoint. So I think that's been huge for us. Obviously we have our own stickman type on the branding as well. So that's been a huge leverage for us. Just kind of making sure that, 2 Men's there, we've added the junk truck to it. So I think there's been able to kind of cross-platform show that we have that 2 Men equity within that side.
Yeah, what an advantage. Well, I mean, I wish I had a pool of, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of customers you guys have. I'm sure it's a lot. I wish I had a pool just to be able to market to and cross sell between, and man, that'd be such an advantage. You guys are obviously having to get new customers as well. Your franchises are needing to get new customers also, which I'm assuming do well on the junk side. Hey, it benefits moving too.
Hey, Lee Godbold here with a very quick message from our company, JRA 360. Running a junk removal business isn't just about operating efficiently. It's about keeping the phone ringing and the trucks rolling. The most successful operators don't rely on word of mouth alone. They have a marketing strategy that works for them around the clock. That's where JRA 360 comes in. We take a multi-layered approach to digital marketing with strategies designed to drive real growth and a strong return on investment. From Google Business Profile optimization aiming to dominate local search, to SEO and content marketing that brings in organic leads that actually convert, we run high-performing Google ads and we retarget campaigns to capture junk removal customers when they're ready to book. We also combine social media and video marketing to build brand authority and drive engagement. And because credibility matters, our reputation management strategies help increase your reviews and strengthen your trust with customers. The company's hitting 7 and 8 figures in revenue. They're not leaving it to chance. They build a marketing machine that delivers jobs day after day at a profitable rate. If you're serious about growing your business to the next level, whether that's breaking past $1 million, hitting $5 million, or even scaling way beyond that, JRA 360 has the strategy to get you there. Visit JRA360.com to learn more, and let's start building your growth engine today.
What are some of the marketing things you guys are doing now to get new customers that have never used anybody in 2 Men in a Truck?
I think we just had our opportunity. We just rolled out our first national promo that we've sent out. And I think that's been a huge push for us. We saw a lot of leads. Our leads crept up, conversion went up. We're starting to get in more places, starting to be more integrated within our B2B conversation. And they're integrated even in when they go and meet with their kind of in their commerce, right? In our local commerce, local businesses, and letting them know, even at that standpoint, that we're now here. We're able to provide that junk removal service for them. So trying to meet customers where they want to be met, whether it be in the digital side or even in the grassroots, and putting in even all the way out to the yard signs is, that can be one of the most effective marketing tactics that we have out there. Just being engaged, being in the community, understand that we're out here trying to build the brand awareness every single day, and trying to be present.
On the marketing side of things, were your franchises surprised at the difference between marketing between junk removal and moving, or is it kind of similar and they kind of rolled with it?
I think it's a little bit different. Not having the, 24 years of experience that Randy's got on the moving side. That's one of my benefits, is I get to typically have some blinders into this a little bit, but I think it's just timing right now too. It's hands on deck. It's got to have that grit. We got to be creative in how we can generate that buzz. And back to your point, it's a new business. You got to do new business tactics. You have to have that willingness to go out there and constantly visit in on those conversations and relationships that you've built, lean on them. So I think that's probably been one of the bigger pushes.
If you don't mind, you had shared too, just the amount of the capital investment on the marketing side up front, right? And being crystal clear about that expectation while still being patient on the return side, right? And so to your question, I think that's one that we've had to adapt to from our upfront communication with people looking at junk now. Previously, where to your earlier point, like you can't just rely on, a single digit percentage of spend like we've been able to do for, because of the equity side. On the moving side, when you're going to start the brand new junk brand, like, you got to be capitally intensive up front, be patient on the returns, hit those margins, go after the expense management, but you got to put the blood, sweat, and tears into the guerrilla marketing too, as part of pounding the pavement. So it's a commitment of focus and energy. But I feel like patience is a big one too, as you're going through it, right? Like 3 months into it, why am I not profitable? Like that, it's part of the plan, right? You got to be committed to it.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, is setting those expectations, because the amount of marketing spend based upon the amount of revenue on the junk side, when you first get going, if you want to establish any sort of marketing share, can be high, scary, whatever you want to call it. It's a lot to get going for sure. So this kind of segment we've been talking about, the transition into junk removal, I would consider these to be kind of challenges. Some cultural adjustments, I think, are probably part of it. I want to hit on something that's around the challenge and the cultural adjustment side of things, not necessarily just about moving or junk removal. I'm curious, 2021, you mentioned ServiceMaster acquired you guys, and there are a lot of junk removal brands out there, much smaller than where you were, but they're being approached by private equity companies or, groups of brands kind of similar to ServiceMaster. And they listen to them, and they're kind of just curious how it works and that sort of stuff. So Randy, can you walk us through that journey? When did they start talking to you? Was it something you guys were actively looking for? What was emotion? What was people's feelings about it internally within the brand? Was it excitement? Was it nervousness? Was it both? Can you just kind of step back those 5, 6, 7 years, and just kind of think back to where you were and just talk us through kind of what was going on in the business at that point?
Yeah. And so, we were, previous to acquisition, we're family owned, privately held, right? Didn't have a board. Our family was our board, right? And so gave our leadership team a lot of autonomy here to run 2 men in a truck. And so, you go through the strategic planning exercises of seeing where the family's at with where they want to be. And at some point, that opportunity to sell came up, right? And so we went to really just to market, to partner with a great investment banking firm and saying, hey, let's just see who's out there, see who's interested. And that was a journey, right? Like, you go from family owned, privately held to, the potential private equity ownership. It's just a dichotomy shift of just, to your point, every emotion you probably can think of, you're probably going through it, right? The nervousness, the excitement, the unknowns, the uncertainty. But we went through that journey, and, to the team's here's credit, I think we had a clear process of how we're going to vet a potential buyer, how we're going to grade, how we're going to judge, the questions we want to make sure we get answered from our leadership team, separate from the brand, of who we're going to be partnering with, their thoughts of where they see the opportunities with 2 men in a truck, and more importantly, just like we do with franchisees when they're going through a discovery process, like, you're joining a brand where there's systems, there's process, there's expectations. Like, can a prospect follow those process through the discovery day? Because if they can't, they're probably not going to be great franchisees. Likewise, on the flip side of looking at, private equity buyers, like, are they professional? Do they have, their key leaders meeting with us face to face? How are they responding to our questions, right? And that was important for us because it is a partnership, right? And so we navigated that. That was a several month process of management meetings and trying to narrow down the right partner. And I'll tell you, Lee, all of us independently kind of picked who we felt would be the best partner moving forward. And all of us had picked work capital as the suitor. And to their credit, very professional. Their managing director was on every call with us. They had a team of people just learning more about who we were as human beings, as well as, where we saw the opportunities. They shared their thoughts on some of the opportunities, and just, the mentality is aligned. And so post-transaction, yeah, it's a big change, right? You go from 40-year business of family owned and seeing family members to now we're owned by a company that's based out of Atlanta, right? And so the message to our team, though, the family feel was created by us, right? And that's something that we maintained. My commitment to the owners was, as a franchisee, you shouldn't feel any impact from an agreement, from our vision, where we're going, our focus, our services. Junk removal is one example as an investment in new lines of revenue. So a lot of change and at the same time, new opportunities, right? Now we've got a team of individuals looking at other opportunities with other brands within ServiceMaster, synergies to your earlier point. How can we help, our residential cleaning with potential infusing, moving, or vice versa, right? And so all those things are opportunities for us, but it was definitely a journey. I think all of us that have gone through it have learned a lot, but at the same time, like, we're excited for the next 7-10 years ahead because we've got somebody that has our back, right? And is willing to ask us questions when there's questions, but at the same time saying, hey, we trust and support the vision you've set, the culture you've built, like, go do it, go run. Whatever we can do to help, we're here. So that's what I value most about work and ServiceMaster's involvement with 2 Men in a Truck and 2 Men in a Junk Truck.
So right after the acquisition was made, initially, was it just kind of business as usual, or did you feel like there was changes that were implemented right away?
No, I think business as usual. Like, so August 2021 is when we kind of final going through that transition, but we had a plan, we had a strategy, we had a budget, and that following fall, we did the same thing for 2022, right? And so, I think that the macro factors impacting moving the last couple of years, we had COVID, we had an acquisition, we had one of the toughest housing markets in the last, several decades, right? Hit us.
Yeah.
And the resiliency of the brand has shown through, right? So no, there's a transitional period. And as we've gotten into it, there's always change, but at the same time, we have a strong voice here. We have 200 people working out of Lansing, Michigan. We didn't move. We didn't relocate our corporate office. We've taken on a lot of responsibilities for the other brands, which I love because it's confidence in our teams here to handle it. And it's opportunities for people here to step up and take on more roles. So to your point, yeah, there's a transition. Then you get into 3-year strategy planning, and those are the cool things, exciting things for me to see, like, where could we go and how could we get there faster? And so I think that's where work has brought to is just kind of more of that structure around the planning and strategy, which not prior to what we'd done before, but it's just a different way to approach, 36 months out.
I love it. We're actually going to go into talking a little bit about vision here in just a moment too, but I want to touch on a couple other things. Cross-selling between brands. I hadn't really thought much about that, but ServiceMaster has, a dozen or more different brands, from cleaning brands to roof. I think there's a few different brands associated with it.
There's 6 brands. Yep. 6 brands. Disaster restoration, you got commercial cleaning, residential, and you've got bioremediation, then you got the moving and the junk removal brands that are all under ServiceMaster's umbrella.
Do you guys feel like you do a pretty good job cross-selling between those, or is that something that you want to continue trying to work and expand?
Yeah, it's a work in progress. To your point, like, when we were acquired, we went from one entity working on Zone 2 to joining a family of brands, different operating systems, different back-end systems, different accounting platforms. So there is that transition, right, to try and harmonize those areas. I would say we're okay. We're not great yet at that. And the one thing I give and that we take a lot of concern in is the consumer experience, right? We're not in the business of sharing, selling. Like, we got to make sure, Jason mentioned this, meeting the customer where they want to be met. So, and feeling like it's an organic introduction of the other brands or it's at the right time. And so that's something that we're truly walking with before we run to, because we want to make sure we protect the experience overall with the consumers.
How do you navigate that? Because it's got to be so, I don't know if you use the word tempting, but that's the only thing that's really coming to my mind right now. You have these 6 brands. There's a lot of customers there. The data, the privacy is really important.
Yes.
How do you kind of navigate? How do you make those introductions kind of more organically? Is there any steps or any things you guys do?
Yeah, it's kind of hand-to-hand combat, right? It might be inefficient, but it's more impactful this way of just introducing the owners in each of the markets, like, ServiceMaster, Restore, Disaster Restoration.
Cool.
We've got a lot of franchisees now on the 2 Men network and on the junk side that are now have a relationship and a good relationship with the owners of Restore. So in the event of a cat event or some sort of weather event where they need pack out services, now the relationship's already there, versus saying, hey, everyone's going to be responsible and required to go work with everyone else in these family of brands. It's not going to go over well because you've got different personalities. They might have had previous experiences in a market 10 years ago that wasn't good, that we didn't even know about. So you have to, it is inefficient, it is tempting, it is exciting to see where it could go, but you got to approach it the right way. And then you take those that are doing well and then you just leverage their story with everyone else and let them share, right, of what they're doing well and to get others on board. So made a lot of progress in the last 6 months. I think we've got a lot of ideas and thoughts over the next 12 months ahead to get to be smarter, stronger organically, while at the same time looking at better ways to automate some introductions into the consumer journey.
Yeah, I think I can't remember exact words you used. I think you said good. You're good at it, not great. It's a work in progress. I feel like everything I do is a work in progress. So.
Yeah, 100%.
I think if you have that mindset, it's great. But I love that perspective, man. I just feel like that's so powerful. I wouldn't have thought of it like that. And I think that's great. So just kind of organically getting the owners introduced, just basic networking. It's spreading throughout the different list, client list, or making introductions between customers and all that way. Just kind of nurturing that the best you can. It's great. Absolutely. Jason, on your side, you're very involved with the 2-minute and junk truck owners. Are they kind of actively doing some of that, or is that something kind of
funny? And I love how Randy was leading in on that. So it kind of, there's been more often than not, we've had some questions that'll come in from franchises like, hey man, how do I get involved with my restore guy or even Married Maids? How do we? And I'm like, listen, we can make the introduction, but the success is going to be at the local level. Really, much like what Randy started this whole conversation off, is building those relationships with our franchisees. That goes between each franchisees themselves, right? They got to reach out and say, hey, we have opportunity. We kind of helped foster, facilitate to try to kind of get the intros and they're local. But also ultimately it's just on them at that local level to say, hey, I think, if you're talking to a Married Maid location, if you will, you guys are in the home already. You may know the owners or their plans if they're moving or if they got junk removal needs. And, how do we share those leads out? How do we get you at least introduced to each other? And so we can kind of leverage that opportunity. So we've had some that are already doing it, which has been great. I think some maybe even have a conversation or a relationship, I think, with Restore even before we were in working with work, I think even beforehand. So it's definitely an opportunity and there's success to be had there. But I think it's really at that local level for them.
Excellent. I love it. So if it's that really sounds like something that an independent owner could do also on their side. If a guy owns a junk removal business or a dumpster side, just making relationships with other business owners and trying to kind of feed them business and expect some in return. I could see where that could work on that side as well.
For sure.
People business, right? Like you said, man, if you're building relationships locally, you're top of mind and you're helping give back to get, right? I think that's a win-win. That
servant's heart.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yes.
Very good. Okay. I think we've covered several things and people can kind of realize this just by the conversations that we've had. But if somebody's looking to open up a business, let's start with this. Who's kind of your ideal franchise partner? What do they look like? What's their experience like? Kind of walk us through that. Jason, if you'd like to take that question.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, I think that's a great question. You go back to, Jason, what have you learned, since you've been on board, and there's been a few of those learning opportunities with the owners that are coming on board. I think it's somebody who's going to be, I have to have some financially sound investment ready to happen. Like Randy, commented, it's a marketing heavy up front to understand that they have to have some patience in the business. That brand awareness and the investment up front does come back and have a return on it. We just got to be able to build that path to it. Somebody understands that, hey, you got to be engaged in the community. And this is a relationship-based industry for sure. So understanding what that means, having some level of, operations and efficiency and what it means to be in junk removal, truck efficiency, truck utilization, right? And having the right people in the seats. I think we've had a few, locations try and figure out they thought they had the right person or they were going to be comfortable in those conversations, whether it be in the driveway or overcoming objections on the phone. I think it's a matter of trying to find that leader who's going to have that grit and have that ownership on an every single day basis. I think those are the people that we're probably looking for that have an understanding on that side.
And Randy, if you guys are able to discuss this, is there a type of net worth that you're looking for in an individual? I know like McDonald's posts a certain amount of net worth. What type of initial investment are they looking at? In terms of the initial investment, does that all have to come from cash or there cash reserves you require? Are there, can they finance a portion of it? Whatever you're able to discuss, that would be great.
Yeah, the answer to that is yes. They're able to come at it with different mechanisms from a funding perspective. We do disclose our net worth requirements and initial investment. Primarily, to mention, it's trucks, right? You have the choice to lease or buy, but and then finding truck parking, you don't have a large build out like you have with some of the quick service restaurants where you've got a lot of equipment or ovens or things like that you have to go into. It's basically finding a facility that's pretty close to, where you can get to your consumers and more importantly, where employees can get to you, but also where you can park your trucks. And, trucks aren't cheap any longer, but you're looking at a couple $100,000 per truck, right? And that investment. And then, we build that plan with them as they go through discovery and training to say what's the local marketing launch look like and what should your return look like moving forward. So that's all part of the franchising fund of the disclosure laws and what comes into it. But we try and vet that right out of the gate just from the capital requirements and qualifying requirements when somebody's first looking at the opportunity.
Okay. And guys, just a quick question for you all, kind of off topic here. Excellent there. So that's some awesome feedback from both of you guys in terms of what you're looking for on the franchise side. What I'm curious about, obviously we've talked about a lot of benefits here, and I think people just kind of realize them on your own. But Jason, if somebody's looking to get into business, again, we just asked about what you're looking for from them. Why would they want to work with two men in a junk truck?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think one of our opportunities that we have is being able to kind of leverage the, 40 years that we have on the two men and understanding what right looks like. So kind of, we're not starting in an entirely new franchise or kind of base, if you will. Like Randy said, we've got a lot of people within the Michigan Support Center that are supporting both brands as well. So we have a strength to be able to hit the ground running from that standpoint, which means that we've already been able to determine all the right policies, standards, and what can we do to put even training material in place, courses. And so it's kind of like we've had a head start on what it means to be able to start a whole new franchise and get that system in place. So I think that's probably been one of our biggest benefits, is to be able to lean on all of those years of experience, which also comes with a little bit of a challenge. They've set a very high bar in what it means to support customer base. And so we want to make sure that we maintain that as well on our side of the business.
And Jason, you guys are selling individual 2 men in a junk truck franchises now, correct? To people that are not as part of the system?
Yep, correct. Yeah, we've got our first location over in Connecticut. He came on board is the end of 24, been up and running, and we've got a pretty strong pipeline right now with a number of other opportunities coming in to be able to join the brand itself.
And are you able to sell a franchise in all 50 states at this point?
I think I know we just went dark with the FDD filing right now. Washington State, I think, might be one that we're not in. And New Jersey, I think, are the two that jump off the page to me that we're not able to.
Yeah, but most of them you guys are good for, so it's worth people to look into it. New Jersey will be interesting how you navigate the A901 requirement on the licensing.
You said that with the straight. Yeah, we're working through that, and we understand it's a process.
Yeah, that's interesting from a franchise perspective on how you handle that. All right, well, very, very good. Randy, I would be curious if we heard Jason's take on why somebody would want to partner with two men in a junk truck. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think, to your point, like if you're looking to invest in a brand or a franchise system, do your values align with the company's values first and foremost, right? Because if they don't, it's going to be a conflict right out of the gate, right? And secondly, reach out to the existing owners, right? And so, they're the voice, they're the ones that'll give you, everything from what they've experienced. So take that. And I think, from what we're able to offer, to Jason's point, like, the system, the support, the resources, we hope after Discovery Day, they get a chance to meet and see the faces behind each of the areas, whether it's finance, HR, whatever it is, marketing, sales. They meet our IT leaders, like of who's behind the scenes building our operating system, our BI and intelligence. Like if they have those strong relationships and they feel good about it, they get the franchisee validation and they align with our values, then it's going to be a good fit, right? Because we can have the greatest system, and then if we don't align on those areas, it's going to be just a tumultuous time together, and life's too short, candidly, in my mind.
Yeah.
So it's people, right? So align with people, the values, talk to as many as you can. There'll be pros and cons of franchising, just like there's pros and cons of doing it on your own, right? And so some of the cons are you might not be able to do what you want to do at that given moment with your idea, because we have to vet that against, can we replicate it? Can we train it? Can we measure it and roll it out and support it? And so those things might not fit with a 120% entrepreneur that wants to go do something like pink trucks tomorrow or green trucks or whatever. Like, I got this idea that I want to go do now. And it's like, whoa, like, let's talk about that. Right. And so those things can be, a con, as are, there's fees and there's other things associated with, being a part of the 2 Men in a Truck or 2 Men in a Junk Truck brand. So those things all have to be weighed out. And at the end of the day, do you feel confident and comfortable with who you're partnering with if it's franchising?
It's the brand, though, man. I mean, that's you guys brought up some good stuff, but it's the brand. I mean, it's like, 20 years ago, if I could have bought up a 1-800-GOT-JUNK franchise, I'd have bought up every single one I could. Back then it didn't, but in a way, it's even more recognizable. So it's like there's, you guys have a really recognizable brand, but you have all these open markets. So I think that's the powerful thing there for sure.
We're just getting started, man. And yeah, you nailed it.
Love it. Well, you mentioned just getting started. That kind of segues perfectly into my next question, which is you guys are sitting in Lansing, Michigan, and I don't know if it's chilly right now. It's just warming up. Jason just cut his grass. He had to do it twice because he was so far behind. 2 times in a row there. Had to adjust the deck height halfway through. But let's transport ourselves from sitting in Lansing, Michigan, and let's go off to a nice warm beach. North Carolina beaches aren't quite warm yet. So let's go down to Florida. Let's transport ourselves to the white sandy beaches of St. Petersburg, down in Florida. And let's put our phones away. We have no phones. We're just kind of out there by ourselves, maybe a spouse, whatever. We're sitting out on the beach and we close our eyes and we get to thinking about work and life and vision. And specifically, what's the vision? What's everything look like at 2 Men in a Junk Truck 5 years from now, 10 years from now? What are you guys hoping to accomplish? Randy, I'd love to start with you.
Yeah, I think, and Jason nailed it. We've got the 2 Men in a Truck, 40 years in business, different, is I hope within 5 years, like the 2 Men in a Junk Truck brand has established that identity on its own, with its own unique culture, own unique people working in it, consistent franchise development with new signings, owners that are happy and reinvesting in more locations. We're really focusing on quality and support right now. We don't want to go sell 100 markets. Like for us, it's let's do this slow and the right way, right? And so my eyes are closed. I feel like in 5 years, man, that brand is strong for the right reasons, which is the culture is strong. Franchisees are engaged. We have great relationships. They're reinvesting in the brand, and consumers love our service.
Love it. And Jason, on your side, I mean, what do you see? How many trucks are you at? How many franchise partners are you at? I mean, I love Randy's answer, but
yeah, Jason, how many are we at? I'm just
he's gonna hold me to it now, Lee, but I'd love to have that, in the next 5 years. I'd love to see it up to like 200 locations out there. I'm with you, reinvesting back into it where we have multi-unit owners that are out there. They've seen the value and what it means to be in junk removal. We have been able to carve out not only our name, but our share of market. And then, we're here, we're present, we're not just something that's going to be a fly by night, that we've established ourselves, that we are a player in the game. I want to be able to advance the brand in a technology standpoint and a sales standpoint. I want to make sure that we're in that vein and that we're meeting the customer where they want to be met. And that people have kind of, come alongside us and made the investment with us. I think that it's important to be able to support the franchisees in all of what they want to take on. And I take a lot of pride in that and being able to hear those conversations. I take just as much pride to be able to kind of show the opportunity within the Michigan Support Center and the org structure that we have, and being able to move people forward there as well and give them opportunity to grow with a growing brand, right? So I think overall, just trying to put more trucks out there, trying to be in all 50 states and maybe more. As 2 Men in a Truck has a larger footprint than that today. So they hold a high bar in regards to what right looks like. And we want to make sure that we've done that, but we've done that in the 2 Men in a Junk Truck way with the right core values behind it.
If you could pull a number out of total locations, and it's just, Randy's not going to hold you to it. It's just like one that just pops into your head right now, 5 years. Where do you hope to be at?
I had to pick one. It'd be like 250.
There you go, Randy. There's your number, man.
Yeah, he's right. I'm surprised he normally will lean over and write that down.
This is
and
recorded, Jason, by the way.
Recordings and all, yes. So yeah, no, and the thing is, and there's reasons why I say it, right? I mean, obviously strength and growth within the brand, but quite frankly, we're in the majority of where we're at today are in metro markets and the mod markets. I think we just got our first mod market in there, the smaller size. Huge opportunity in that base. So I think that, when you start to consider both the metro, the mod, the countries that we can go into and where we can start to really have that growth, I definitely think as a holistic that number is doable for us.
250, 5 years. But we'll have to check back in on.
Please do.
Yeah.
In 2030.
Yeah, and I love that. But we're so with junk focused on the next 12 months, right? Let's continue to work on, to your earlier point, the lessons learned, the foundational elements of understanding what those true KPIs should be, that our behaviors are aligned with what we're expecting. I give a lot of credit to our franchisee that just jumped in early on as part of this and are willing to continue to invest. And so, yeah, the 250 is great out there too, but we're really honing in, hey, 2025, early 2026, let's maximize spring season ahead, fall cleanups next spring, working towards those areas. It's very in the weeds at the moment, but it's partly the timing of where the brand is. And knowing if we do those, the 250 will be there. If we do it the other way, it's going to be, it's a tougher world to say, hey, let's go ahead 250 without doing the intangibles right now.
From an outside perspective, there's somebody obviously very ingrained in the junk removal world. You guys probably don't think about it like this. Maybe you do. I think you're very focused internally, as you should be, on always just becoming better today than you were yesterday. But from my standpoint, I think 5 to 10 years from now, you guys should be right up in the mix with Junk King and College Hunks and Got Junk in terms of size and locations. And do you ever feel that pressure, Jason, running this brand? Do you ever think about that? That this is such a huge name and there's expectations that go along with it. I mean, in my opinion, you guys should be right up there in 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, I'd be lying to say that hasn't crossed my mind, but I will tell you the first thing that, as fast as that comes in, the thing that trumps that for me is the opportunity. Opportunity to be able to lead the team, live at the tip of the spear and lead into what Randy and the team envisioned it to be. I think it's the opportunity to be able to kind of work with the franchise network and continue to grow into that vision. So yeah, it can be a little daunting to think about that, but honestly, it's outweighed by the opportunity that it provides.
Love it. And Randy, from your side, anytime you become a CEO of a major corporation, CEO, president, and everything of a major corporation, there's pressure associated with that. How do you handle pressure?
Still figuring it out 24 years later, I think. I think the biggest thing for me is there's routines, right? And habits. It's not the goals you set, it's the routines and habits that matter more, right? And so making sure I'm intentional with that. I think the easiest way to get burned out is you forget why you do what you do. And so when you're going through these pressure situations, stressful times, the macro, all that stuff is don't forget, at specifically 2-minute truck, our purpose is to move people forward like that. If I'm helping a mover become a driver become a manager ultimately joining our scholarship program, becoming an owner, that's my why, right? If we're seeing a franchisee expand into a new market with their bench, that's our why. And so for me, it's reminding myself my why, controlling the controllables, especially I know that can be cliche at times, but if you're not focused in the right area on what you can impact today within your control, it's going to be a futile effort trying to figure that out, right? So yeah, handling pressure and having a clear plan, right? I mean, if plan's the plan, we're all on board with it. It's going to change as we go throughout the year, but being crystal clear of what success looks like 12 months from now is a good way to make sure we're working backwards to make sure we're attaining it versus we're stressed out about something that happened yesterday. You got to step back and look at the bigger picture and what you're doing. Is it going to lead to long-term value?
As you're going through and you've made a 12-month plan, obviously things can change. Economic conditions can change, tariffs can be introduced, interest rates can go up. And does that change your goal? Do you guys ever change your goal based upon what's actually happening? Or are you somebody that sets one and you're just going to see it all the way through and kind of see how the chips fall.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of having, being part of bigger brands too, is you're doing, monthly check-ins, you're doing a quarterly check-in, you're doing like a halfway through the year, how are we projecting to be? It doesn't change our ultimate operating plan target of what we want to go after. It's just really clarifying what reality is at the moment, right? And then do we need to pivot in any different direction to say, hey, we're going to go work more on this area versus that based on what we're seeing. So we set the target, we meet monthly, we review quarterly and throughout the year to say, how are we projecting? But at the same time, like we still go to work on, especially during this period on the housing side, right? Of like, where are we reinvesting in our technology? Where are we reinvesting in our systems? Bringing better reporting and intelligence back to our franchisees, right? How are we creating a better customer journey right now? So when things turn, we're going to be in a much better place than we were going into this storm. So that's where, when I talk about controlling the controllables, like we could worry about the interest rates or tariffs or what's happening with like all that stuff can be out there, and you can't manage pressure well that way. Or you say, hey man, we're working on the sales enablement process. We're working on some of the back end technologies. We're working on the consumer facing tech that's going to make their lives easier. Like those things are all things we're planting right now that when things flip or no matter what happens, we will be a better brand from it, while adding new franchises along the way. And so that's kind of the day in the life, I guess.
Manage the deliverables, do the things that you do, the actions that are going to hopefully lead to the result, and just make sure you're doing those and measuring them. That's kind of what I'm hearing from you, is we can control the actions we take. We can't necessarily control the end result and the things that happen in the environment around us. So great words of wisdom there.
Appreciate it.
Well, guys, this has been a awesome episode. And what I would say for the audience that's really listening to this, I want you guys to kind of think about what you're hearing here. You've got some strong leadership. You got two great guys. You got Randy. This is his career. He's been doing this almost 25 years now. You've got Jason. Jason's real strong on the leadership side of things. He's been a part of the brand for a few years now. It's a trusted brand. It's a big name, huge name. 2 men and a truck, 2 men and a junk truck. You got awesome cross-sell opportunities amongst several different brands, 6 brands in total within the ServiceMaster system. And you've got true scalability here. Jason says there's going to be 250 locations in 5 years. So that's moving pretty quick. And so that means if you guys want to be a part of this, and I think you should think about it because it's a big name and great leadership like we just talked about. So if you want to be a part of it, how can people get in touch with you guys? Jason, if they're interested in buying a franchise, what do they need to do?
Yeah, we have a free and dev website you can find it either in going through the ServiceMaster website, through the brands, and then there's a free and dev location, or you can go to the 2 men and a junk truck, and or feel free to reach out to me direct, to Jason.Galey at 2menandajuncktruck.com as well.
Very good. Randy, any final words of any thoughts or final words of wisdom from you before we wrap today's episode?
You've probably heard way too much from me. And I just thank you, Lee, for everything you've done and what you're doing in this community. I think it shows your true character too, of just you're pretty much willing to share information, knowing like there's a lot of customers out there, there's a lot of market share out there to be had, but at the same time, like trying to do it the right way. And that's what I appreciate the most is, you've shared a lot of those intangibles of just ways to do it the right, but you still got to go do the work. You still got to go put the effort in. You still got to make the investment and put the time and energy into this endeavor, no matter whether you're going through franchising or not, to build something that hopefully you look back on in 10 years and be very fulfilled from, but you've done it because you've done it the right way. And I appreciate you doing that, man.
Well, I appreciate that. I thank you guys for coming on and giving me your time this afternoon. I think there's some good stuff we've uncovered here. Everybody, again, this has been Randy Shacka and Jason Galey from 2 Men and a Junk Truck and the 2 Men and a Truck ServiceMaster brands. I think there's some awesome stuff that we've gained from it. Today's episode was brought to you by Specialty Truck Bodies. Again, if you guys are looking for junk removal trucks, head on over to junkremovaltrucksforsale.com. And hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please click that like button and subscribe, depending on what you're watching it on. We are available anywhere you can hear podcasts now. So whatever direction you want to go to hear us, find us on there, and we'll see you on the next episode. Everybody have a great day. All right, that's a wrap for this episode of the Waste Warriors podcast. If you got value from today's conversation, do me a favor, subscribe, leave a review, and share this with someone in the waste industry who needs to hear it. At JRA 360, we are the marketing agency for $1 million+ waste removal businesses and those that want to get there. If you're ready to grow, scale, and dominate your market, check us out at jra360.com. Thanks for listening. Now get out there, take action, and build a business that lasts.